Councilmember Malone.
Me? Oh, sorry. Hold on. I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Andy Fury. Absent. Councilmember Ryan Hennon.
Here.
Councilmember Frank Sweeney.
I'm here.
Councilmember Rebecca Norton.
Here.
City Manager Dana Smith.
I'm here.
City Attorney Angie Jacobs.
She is here. We're just having a little technical difficulty with her.
Great, thanks. And then myself, City Clerk Michelle Hauk, and then Chris Hunt is moderating the event. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Michelle, for the roll call. I'll turn it over now to public comment and communications from the public. If you're here, obviously, to comment on our emergency ordinance, I would just ask that you wait until I hear that, call that public hearing. But if there's anything else you'd wish to bring to the attention of the Whitefish City Council, now would be your opportunity. And your name and address, please. And I know you're not approaching the podium, but we still need your name and address for the public record, please. I'll turn it back over to Chris to manage the public comment.
Okay. I will start at the top of the list, and Angela Persicki, I'm unmuting your mic.
That's Angela Jacobs,
Oh,
Chris,
is that?
so you can
Okay.
move her to panelist. Thank you.
Oh, that's why I couldn't find her. All right. Anna Stein, you are now unmuted if you have any public comment.
Thank you. Not unrelated to today's topic.
Okay. Brian Scott, you are unmuted.
I have no comment.
Okay. Craig Workman, if you have any comment.
No comment. I'm just here in case you guys need me.
Okay. Heidi Deich, you're unmuted. Okay. Hillary Hansen.
No comment.
John Middleton.
No comment.
Kevin Colm, you're unmuted. Okay. Kristen Larson, you are unmuted if you'd like to make comment.
I just want to thank you for being transparent and open for us and letting us listen to what you have to say and being a leader right now for our community.
Just jumped. Maureen Hine, you're unmuted. Okay. Mike Jopic.
No comment at this time.
Okay. Paula Sweeney, you're unmuted.
I didn't sign up to speak. I think you're calling on everybody who registered to view.
We're just checking to see if anybody has public comment right at this time.
No comment.
Okay. Phil Pontillo, you're unmuted.
No comment.
Rhonda Fitzgerald, you're unmuted.
Time.
Okay. Roger Rouse, you're unmuted.
No comment.
Sue Basta, you're unmuted.
No comment.
Okay. Susie Schweikert, you're unmuted.
Thank you. No comment.
Tracy Gridley, you're unmuted.
No comment.
And Tristan Scott, you're unmuted if you'd like to make a comment.
No, I'm good. Thanks for linking us in.
Okay, that is all of our attendees.
Thanks, Chris. Am I unmuted?
Yes,
Yes.
you are, John.
Thanks. We'll move on to item 4 of our agenda, which is our one scheduled public hearing for this morning. The item 4A of our agenda, ordinance number 20-05, an emergency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Whitefish, Montana, implementing the directive implementing Executive Orders 20-2020 and 3-2020, providing measures for the operation of local government, issued by Governor Bullock on March 24, 2020, amending ordinance number 20-04 and waiving a second reading. This will be the only reading for this emergency ordinance, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our city attorney, Angela Jacobs, who will present her staff report and the details of what this emergency ordinance entails. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council members. It's nice to see your faces, even if by video. So we have been responding, I think, minute by minute to this COVID-19 emergency, and I think we did a good job after Governor Bullock closed the schools of trying to respond as quickly as we could. We've since had some guidance from the governor's office and from the AG's office about what we can and can't do. So back when this, I think it was the 16th, we passed our emergency ordinance, and we declared basically if there was a case of COVID-19 within Flathead County, that we would no longer hold city council and planning board meetings. We've had some really good guidance come out from the governor's office and from the AG's office that allows us to do meetings as we are right now, remotely. So basically this ordinance allows Dana to make changes to people's work schedules, to make changes to our employment policies. It allows us to hold meetings remotely, and it allows us to hold some, Dana scrolling through it. Thank you, Dana. Oh, this is, John, I think this is the, am I doing the right one? Are we doing both of the ordinances tonight? No, we're not doing, okay. So let's talk about the other emergency ordinance. John, do you want to do the one that says prohibiting motels, hotels, short-term rentals, and other lodging facilities from accepting reservations? Or do we have? Okay, that one? Okay, sorry, it was the wrong heading. Okay, so let me start over. We'll do the other one tomorrow. So I won't bore you guys with the declarations of emergency that we have, but basically it was brought to our attention that people from high areas, that had high COVID-19 rates were sheltering in place in small mountain towns like ours. And so per council directive, the ordinance bars motels, hotels, short-term rentals, and lodging facilities from accepting reservations for non-essential purposes during the COVID-19 emergency. And we did add some new language to it since we posted it. Councilor Sweeney brought to my attention that we should also be barring walk-ins, not just reservations. and that we should actually be canceling existing reservations for non-essential purposes through April 30th, 2020. It does have exemptions for some essential purposes, including government, healthcare, law enforcement, domestic violence victims, personnel responding to the COVID-19 emergency, essential workers is defined by state and federal guidance, and family members of those seeking medical treatment, and includes those who have a medical recommendation to quarantine outside their home. It also authorizes the city manager to extend the April 30th deadline in accordance with federal, state, and local guidance. So again, I think it's a protective measure. I'm aware that we are the first city to do this in Montana, and I don't think any counties have done it yet. There it is.
Angie, are there any questions for Angie from the City Council on her staff report or the content of the emergency ordinance?
Yeah, there's no staff report. The staff report, I'm sorry, was for the emergency ordinance that we're looking at tomorrow that implements the governor's and AG's recommendations with respect to public meetings.
Any questions on the emergency ordinance from the council?
Yeah, this is Steve. I have a quick question. How do we know? How do we know if somebody is how do we know if a walk-in is a domestic violence victim or not?
We don't.
So if we bar walk-ins like that, how do we still allow people in really bad situations to not be stuck where they are?
It's a good question, Steve. I think, enforcement is going to be tough. We certainly don't want to put hotel employees in the situation of questioning people as to why they're booking a room. I hope it's going to be largely self-policing.
I'm just wondering if the language should be something more tailored to out-of-state people that we know pose a greater risk than people from our own community.
I think we could probably do, in Section 3, we could probably do another exemption for those residing in Flathead County. Statewide, Bozeman has a huge problem. And I think we can tailor the language to maybe Flathead County. We could tailor it to in-state. It's kind of up to you guys.
I would be in favor of tailoring it to at least Flathead County, because that's something that somebody who goes into a hotel is going to have to give their address where they live. So that would, I think that would be helpful.
Steve, I have a question related to your concern. Can you just go into a little bit more detail as to what is your concern and how would this address it, please?
Well, my concern is that in Flathead County, we don't have this community spread yet. I would be concerned that somebody that lives in our county, in our communities, who may just need to get out of the house because of a bad situation would not be able to go to a hotel and walk in and get a room. If we limit all walk-ins, if we tailor it to people from outside of Flathead County, that we won't take walk-ins from outside of Flathead County, that kind of that sort of eliminates that problem. It may open up other problems, I don't know, but that's kind of what I'm aiming at, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I'm certainly not an expert on this subject, but it appears to me that you can make the statement that we don't have confirmed, or we have confirmed cases, but certainly they haven't escalated similar to other communities in Montana, other counties. I think that's largely related to lack of testing. And I do know that there have been many individuals who have contracted neither influenza A nor influenza B that have essentially been sent home because they don't fit the demographic for testing. So my concern would be dismissing or not taking this serious enough to restrict others from within Flathead County from coming to Whitefish to seek lodging facilities. And I think it's adequately covered with Section 3 in reference to domestic violence victims. That's just my personal opinion. And I'd be happy to entertain any thoughts from the other counselors on this matter.
John, can you hear me? This is Frank.
Yes.
I concur. I think that a concern I would have, Steve, is limiting walk-ins to only Flathead County. Is again, it's inconsistent with the overall order for shelter in place, except for some of the essential issues that we've listed here, including domestic violence. It was raised with me this morning when I was discussing this with somebody that we would also want to make sure that we were open if, for example, I'm not inviting it, but if there's somebody in Idaho or in Washington that was escaping domestic violence and ended up here, I don't think we would want to turn them away and turn a blind eye to that. I think this covers that eventuality. It applies to those in Bozeman as well. And it is going to have to be self-policing in a large measure. But I think we're covered with respect to the concerns I think you've got, Steve, here.
I'll just concur with Frank. I would be concerned about somebody who's maybe coming in from out of state to escape a bad situation, and I wouldn't want them turned away in a domestic violence situation just because they didn't live in Flathead County. Maybe they have family members in the area, and so they feel, that this is a safer option for them.
Any other comments from the council on Steve's suggested text edit to Section 3? Or shall we move on?
I would agree with Frank and Melissa. This is Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. Rebecca? Any comments, Rebecca, on Steve's suggested edit?
Okay. I think it's a beautiful sentiment, and I think if we do it right, hopefully law enforcement will be involved in some of those situations too. I think when you check into a hotel, you have to show your ID, so people would probably know where someone was coming from if they were a domestic abuse escapee. So possibly we could set a mechanism in place where the police could be notified as well. But that would probably come through the police, maybe not in this ordinance. Okay.
Thanks, Rebecca. Steve, Steve, are you comfortable if we leave Section 3 as written based on the comments from your fellow counselors?
Oh yeah, that's fine. I understand. It's tricky. It's a tricky situation. I mean, essentially we're leaving this up to the front desk people to decide whether somebody fits in one of these categories or not. And that's just going to be tricky for the people in those positions. Ultimately, in terms of short-term rentals, I think with the Airbnb and those kind of rentals, that's a little bit different, for sure. But I think it's going to be tricky for people on the front lines and hotels in our community.
Duly noted. Thanks, Steve. Any other comments from the council or questions for Angela before I open up the public hearing?
Actually, John, can I just make a comment real quickly?
Yes, please.
So the version of the ordinance that is up on your screen right now is actually not the most recent version. So I just want to read you guys section 2, so you guys know what you're voting on, and so the public knows what you're actually considering, okay? Is that all right?
Yes.
So section 2 should read, all motels, hotels, short-term rentals, and other lodging facilities are prohibited from accepting reservations and walk-ins for non-essential purposes during the COVID-19 emergency. Dates of service from the effective date of the emergency ordinance through April 30th, 2020. All existing reservations for non-essential purposes through April 30th, 2020 must be canceled. Just want to be really clear about what you guys are considering.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate the clarification. Further comments from the council before I go to the public hearing?
Excuse me. I have a question about with family. I know it says it makes a comment about, you know, exceptions for family who maybe need medical treatment, but I'm just wondering if it makes sense to have exemptions in a situation where, and maybe this is covered under the existing ordinance, but you know, if a family member, you know, is disabled and really needs care from a family member that they can't get in their current situation because maybe they live alone, they live far away, they don't have that kind of support. So, you know, like an elderly parent, yeah, who just simply requires assistance with daily activities or meals or that kind of scenario.
Angela, any comment on that?
I think we could, Melissa, I think we could craft an exemption for those caring for family members in a lodging facility.
Okay.
Angela, we're on solid ground making some minor text edits. If the council elects to pass this morning, it still takes effect immediately, correct?
It will, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Further comments from the city council or questions for Angela?
I just have a question. Are we going to try to put out some sort of list of questions that front desk people or reservations people should be asking when people are trying to make reservations? It seems like the people in the front line need some guidance from us in terms of whether or not they should or should not accept incoming new reservations and in canceling current reservations.
Steve, this is Dana. We are going to be sending a letter to all short-term rental operators and lodging facilities. So, you know, this is on the owner's responsibility on how they implement it with their staff. If the owners have questions of how to implement the Section 3, which is for the exemptions, we'll be happy to answer those questions for them. But right now, I think it's very important to know that this is on the owner's responsibility, whether or not the staff is there. The only recourse we have in this is pulling the business license. So the owners are going to want to make sure their front office staff are operating in accordance with this ordinance.
Thanks, Dana. Angela, a question for you, related. Andy Fury was unable to remote into the meeting, and he sent me a message asking if he could give me his proxy vote. Is that permissible under Robert's Rules of Order?
Good question. I don't think so.
Okay,
The top of my head.
just wanted to check. Thanks, though. Any further comments from the council or questions? Not seeing any. I'll go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is a comment. I don't know. And it has more to do less with the substance of the ordinance, and more with the just the tone going around the community that presents some concern for me. And one is just that, you know, should we pass this ordinance? I want to be clear about why we're passing it, which is to really protect our healthcare workers and not burden our healthcare system. That it's also, and not burden our infrastructure. Although we do have a pretty hefty infrastructure here, just because we're in a position of having to accommodate a lot of tourism on a regular basis. So I just put that out there so that people can be clear about the reason for this ordinance, because there is a flavor going around that feels very much like kind of a build the wall mentality of keeping people out. And I think it's important to recognize that we're talking about fellow Americans, and that everybody, you know, all of our fellow countrymen, I would think, are concerned about staying safe and doing what the very best they can to stay protected and stay healthy. And so I just worry about kind of demonizing out-of-towners right now, and I just felt it was important to put that out there.
Thanks, Melissa. Further comments or questions from the council? Further comments from staff before I turn it over to the public hearing? Not seeing any, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for what will be emergency ordinance number 20-05, an emergency ordinance of the city of Whitefish, Montana, prohibiting motels, hotels, short-term rentals, and other lodging facilities from accepting reservations for non-essential purposes through April 30th, 2020. We do have a sign-up list for public testimony. I'm going to turn it back over to Chris Hunt to manage the public comment period. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, and I believe we were first going to go to Michelle to read any emails that she had come in.
Thank you.
Good morning. So we did receive quite a few comments within the last few days via email. Some of those folks are listening in, so I'm sure if they have anything to add, they can do that later on after my reading. Rhonda Fitzgerald had sent in, I also wanted to let you know that I did share these comments with the council and panelists, so you can kind of read along in your email. But Rhonda had shared with us a Facebook post, some comments from the Whitefish pilot that had posted, Whitefish asks hotels to refrain from accepting guests. Some of the comments that were on there, I think she just wanted to share with the council and with staff. Some comments on there was, at least they're just being asked and not being told. There are a lot of reasons why someone might need a hotel room, and it's not just for tourism. Somebody else on that post said, refrain. How about just no for out-of-town requests? I take care of a lot of vacation homes around the valley, and I would say about half have been occupied in the past 10 days. One has 4 MSU students who went to Mexico for spring break and now here in one of our parents' vacation homes. They left Mexico, then spent 4 days in their sorority house in Bozeman. After returning, came up here, went shopping, hit the bars, and then went to the house. No problems with that. The contractor I work for also takes care of vacation homes all along the East Lakeshore. He is saying basically the same thing. Second homes are filling up rapidly. Gallatin County has 18 infections in the 20 to 29 age group. Some more comments. Just helping bring virus into our community, all due to greed of the folks who keep accepting reservations. Stop it. I moved my May 4th Hawaii trip to October. Really, people? So kind of as you read along with those. Moving on to another comment from Alan and Allison. I apologize for not pronouncing this correctly. Buger at 2095 Houston Drive states, we fully support an ordinance that would prohibit any and all short-term rentals, including hotels, B&Bs, etc., keeping our long-term citizens safe and our small first responders crew from being overwhelmed should be priority number one. Thank you for taking this matter seriously. We are relying on our elected officials to navigate a path that protects our health and resources. Stay safe and please keep up the campaign of social distancing. A comment from Adam Bookmiller, no address provided. It says prohibiting motels, hotels, short-term rentals, and other lodging facilities from accepting reservations for non-essential purposes through April 30th, 2020, maybe even longer into middle May. By having these places continue to operate as normal as possible, we are having an uptick in people from hotspots around our hotspot areas of the COVID-19 pandemic come here, not abide by 14-day quarantine, and lay low in Montana. There are numerous VRBOs fully booked till May with people from other states. I understand the financial impact this will cause, but if we keep our risks low, the reward of that far outweighs the monetary value. Time to say Montana is full. A comment from DG Huntman MT, that's his email address. I'm actually glad to see the city lose money. It's hard to live in this area and be an actual everyday worker. Cost of living here is ridiculous and nobody seems to care. We just keep letting the rich in and push us out. When are you going to take us into consideration? John Hankinson states, we might be a bit late on this move to limit families relocating to our town to ride out the social distancing or sequestering period, but it is a good plan to take the step. The Hamptons in New York did not take measures, and thousands of Manhattans relocated to their vacation homes has overwhelmed their supply chain for food, and they do not have the hospital capacity to handle the surge. The locals are furious at their safety being undermined by selfishness and arrogance of the rich and powerful. Thank you for keeping ahead of the outbreak here. Ruthie Heimel, we live on Wood Run on Big Mountain, and there has been an influx of out-of-state area license plates up here. People are not self-quarantined as per the governor's directive. Our local tax-paying residents are extremely concerned that our local resources, such as medical, food, and more, will be depleted. We don't want to compete for our supplies with those fleeing their own home area restrictions. They are out and about with no social distancing. It is extremely unfair to those of us practicing safety guidelines for the benefit of all. Please keep us with this. Yeah, please help us with this. Will Herzum, the question is not whether we should close down lodging. The question is, why did it take this long to have a conversation about it? Moab, Utah did it over 2 weeks ago. Whitefish is not a place where people should look to isolate from larger populations outside our local community. Lindsay Varamoska, I strongly agree with the need to stop visitors from entering Whitefish during this time by prohibiting rentals from accepting reservations. We need to protect our community, and if we do not stop visitors from coming in, we are putting significantly more people at risk, especially our healthcare workers on the front lines of this unprecedented crisis. I sincerely appreciate the Council's consideration of this issue. This is the kind of leadership we need. Stay well. Patrick Kestel, Bullock refuses to stop new construction. Luxury homes and new shiny schools are not essential. No hand sanitizer on the jobs or even in the bathrooms. The air is unfiltered and not recycled. Workers come from other states and counties, and we have to work side by side with them. If 30 to 40 men on a job site get sick, they take it home to families, kids, healthcare workers they are married to. Not shutting down these jobs will exponentially spread COVID-19 through our community and healthcare system. Please shut down no construction. Deadlines are not essential. Construction lives matter. Kristen Larson. Thank you, Mayor John Mulfeld, and to the City of Whitefish for holding this special session. We are in uncharted waters, and I want to thank you for your leadership during this time. We only need to look to our neighboring state of Idaho to see how a small town can be devastated by COVID-19 by allowing short-term rentals to continue business as usual. We need quick, decisive planning and action. We have to be proactive. Short-term rentals, hotels, motels are not essential during this time of crisis. What is essential is the safety of our families. Thank you for your time and communication. Michelle McDowell, she asks, she is wondering if there will be available rooms for folks that need to leave their residences due to household members needing to be quarantined. Carrie Mushkin, Tim and Carrie Mushkin, thank you for taking this matter up in emergency session. Aptly so. Please do not be short-sighted. National health and worldwide economic ramifications aside, short-term greed for local rental income could do irreparable damage to both our lives and our long-term tourism industry due to loss of credibility. By failing to take responsible action limiting tourism during this crisis, you should be unduly placing non-Whitefish tourism demands on COVID-19 essential emergency services at the expense of our local citizens and taxpayers. That is wrong. This is a time of mutual responsibility and mutual sacrifice. Why should Whitefish citizens lose weeks, months of our lives responsibly sheltering in place for safety just to be undermined by a few greedy landlords wanting to make a quick weekend buck? These are unprecedented times. Your actions will be recorded for all time. Let history judge you for taking the responsible high ground and doing the right thing for the population you are sworn to protect and govern. The national guidance is social distancing. Even our national parks are sacrificing tourism income for the greater good. Please don't second guess that. Have faith and stay the line to shorten the nightmare for all of Montana and the United States. Thank you for your consideration of the above. We respect and appreciate your hard work. Don Ulrich. May it be noted, please, that my husband Michael and myself are of the opinion that encouraging people from out of state coming from potential areas of COVID-19 clusters be disallowed from our vacation rental pool at least until the state of shelter-in-place mandates are lifted. It is imperative that we do all we can to protect our own community members and not overburden our medical resources and staffing. This is a unique situation without historical precedents, and hotel liars and vacation rental owners potentially can make a huge difference in the overall impact of this virus by leaving accommodations empty now. And just this was from RMA. It doesn't have a name or anything. It just says, please, please, please close all lodging facilities. This is the only way to stop out-of-staters coming. Doug Ramarine. Hello, this is Doug Ramarine from the Great Northern Bar. I applaud the city's efforts against this horrid virus. You got on it early, and so far it seems to be working. However, it makes no sense to me to shut down the bars and restaurants and most non-essential businesses, yet to allow visitors from potentially infected areas to come into our valley and rent a room or condo. We all have seen the We have all seen the reprehensible ad from Whitefish Escapes. This is not acceptable to me. I urge you to include short-term rentals in the closure list. If you're going to shut it down, let's do it right. This is a hardship for us all, but the sooner we act, the sooner it will be over. Thanks for your diligence and your collective wisdom. Casey Sullivan. I would like to add my voice to those who feel it is wise to shut down short-term rentals in the Valley until you are back to business as usual. There is plenty of data available from places that continue to allow this and the increase of coronavirus due to it. Please do the right thing. Let's get our community back on its feet as quickly as possible. Thank you for your efforts. Anna Todd. Good morning. I'm writing in support of John Wolfeld's proposed for prohibiting motels, hotels, short-term rentals, and other lodging facilities from accepting reservations for non-essential purposes through April 30th, 2020. And the last one is from Joy Whipple. As a Whitefish resident, I would strongly support the limitation of non-essential rentals within our city. While I greatly sympathize with the economic strain this puts on these businesses, it is a matter of the greater good and a necessary sacrifice at this time. First and foremost, must be the safety of our population. Travelers jeopardize not only the exposure and infection of others in coming here, but put an added burden on all of our resources, including a healthcare system that may potentially be pushed to existing limits, leaving us unable to care for them or our own residents. Thank you for your consideration. All these comments will be added, appended to the website today, this afternoon, and then also be included in with the minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. So to remind participants, I will go through the list for each individual, unmute your mic, and we'll ask you to please state your name and your address for the record. We'll go through the list one at a time, and we will begin with, and forgive me if I mispronounce somebody's name, but we will start with Anna Stein.
Hi. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Anna Steen, and I live at 307 3rd Street West in Columbia Falls. I hope it's okay that I've joined your meeting, and I first want to just thank the council and city management for their thoughtfulness and urgency in managing the community as a whole. I think you guys are setting a great example for the county. And I just got back from New York City on the 17th. I've been so proud of Montana and the way Governor Bullock is handling it, and all of the cities really. When I saw that there was this special meeting, I just wanted to share with you guys some of my experience since I've gotten back. And I appreciate that you're trying to get out in front of this, and I see the policy, but I am wondering about management and enforcement. Right now, the enforcement looks like it is about taking away business licenses. Whereas if this was really going to be effective, not only for the people who are needing to shelter in place, perhaps in a hotel or Airbnb, real enforcement would be to make sure that they are self-quarantining or sheltering in place. And I don't think we can put that on the Airbnb owners and front desk staff wholly, because each owner is going to manage this policy a little bit differently. And if they're coming at it from a defensive place of not losing their business license versus a solution-driven place of actually providing people who do need essential housing for whatever the reason is that the city deems is appropriate, I think that you're going to find some real gaps in service. I think you're also going to find some abuse of it. And it's going to be more about not having the right information, education, and training than it is, any sort of malice per se. For me, I have a unique story. I came back from New York. I went into self-quarantine on Wednesday, the 18th, and was extremely diligent. I've been practicing a lot of the day-to-day, especially with, hand washing and wiping things down and being careful where I go for a few weeks now. But I went into full quarantine on the 18th. And I have 2 people in my life who have tested positive. I have tested negative twice. And so we have ruled out that I am a carrier at this time. And I'm well past the 14-day. That doesn't mean that I couldn't pick it up here. I have now moved to another home where I am by myself, and it's another waiting game to see if I picked it up from my living situation back in the Flathead. So I have noticed also, and I'm very concerned about some of the attitudes around outsiders, specifically New Yorkers, but really anywhere. Seattle is very close by. And I think Melissa phrased or used an appropriate term of kind of build the wall attitude. The fact is that I know that I came back and have been very diligent, as responsible as I can be. Of course, there are gaps here and there. I try to keep everyone informed around me. And I think we could actually be working with some of these people who do need an essential place for whatever reason. And they could actually be setting a great example in our community of how serious they take this. If there are young people in their 20s from MSU, wherever, I think that there is a way that if they're going to be guests in our community, regardless of whether they have family ties or however they ended up here or for what reason new people might come in, we could work with the owners and the managers of these hotels to make sure that people are quarantining, that they are wiping down. Airbnb has been amazing with how they're working with getting medical providers places to live, and I think that they would be a great asset for a clickable agreement where people don't get to move in unless they click on an agreement and it's very specific. And it would also be a real boost for the owners of the Airbnbs or the other lodging facilities. I think I want to just look at my notes really quick. I really appreciated Mr. Quinnell's questions about domestic violence. I know in New York, I don't know what it's like here, I haven't gotten up to speed, but in New York, there are really heartbreaking stories of people who are now sheltering in place with abusers, and the uptick in assaults is just heartbreaking. And that's happening in our community too. To what extent, I don't know. I haven't had time to look into it. But that might be an opportunity to partner with the Abbey Shelter so that front desk staff aren't asking personal questions, aren't making decisions on their own about the risk, the safety, et cetera, et cetera. That is a huge burden to put on them. And it also, when people are in desperate situations, whether it's that they're getting out of a house that has a positive COVID or an abuser, they're already in a desperate situation. And then to navigate someone who comes in with their own biases and varying levels of information and education and training on how to accept or reject someone doesn't sound like a great solution. And perhaps, PSAs and working with the Abbey Shelter, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Abbey Shelter, but making sure that maybe we filter people who are experiencing domestic violence through the Abbey Shelter, and Abbey Shelter can work with their resources to then contact the hotels or Airbnbs ahead of time. That might be too much of a burden for the Abbey Shelter. I don't know. I know for me, since I have been tested twice, the county has called me every day, sometimes twice a day. They're following my case very closely, as well as the 2 people in my life. And I'm wondering, with people coming into the valley for whatever reason, why couldn't we extend those calls preemptively? Maybe it's not the county, maybe it is, but we don't have that many cases for the county to be following up on a daily basis. Perhaps reaching out to these Airbnb guests on a daily basis or every 48 hours and saying, how is sheltering in place going? Are you quarantining? Do you know how to get your groceries delivered? Do you have any symptoms? And it would be a great way for us to track the people that are here from out of state. And it would also be a really great way just to be supportive and enforcing of what our, the social distancing and just how important it is. I think if guests have that message immediately up front, they could actually be allies with us in setting an example for some of our own citizens who maybe aren't taking this as seriously. And I think that that is all I have. I know that just in terms of tone and attitude, I think that as a country, we are taking our medical professionals for granted in a way that is unconscionable. And so I don't want to see a lot of people come in and overwhelm our medical facilities in the same way that I don't want to see our local citizens overwhelming our medical facilities because something preventable could have taken place, or something unpreventable takes place and it spreads like wildfire. But I do think that it has been really interesting to see this very exclusionary kind of attitude. I've felt it myself, just having come from New York. I'm very lucky that I got to get out of New York. I have a unique situation, but for a lot of the comments on social media and in the newspapers, they would exclude someone like me. And many of you know me. You maybe haven't seen me and how diligent I've been in my quarantine, but that's because I've been really diligent. And so I guess I also see that there is an opportunity here if the actual management and enforcement could be done in a solution-driven way. We open up a little bit of commerce. Greed has been thrown around a lot about the owners of the Airbnbs and other lodging facilities. And sure, maybe some people are greedy, but I don't really think that that's what this is about. We're all surviving. And I think that there's a way that we could actually really set a tone and some leadership around having areas of commerce open that do make sense and are actually really supportive for the rest of our country. But of course, I do not presume to know how that is done. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. And thank you so much.
Okay, our next attendee is Brian Scott. You are unmuted. If you would please state your name and address if you want to make a comment.
I appreciated the comments of Councillor Quinnell regarding domestic violence and the nuances that every short-term rental owner would have to weigh in terms of what is essential, how are we taking care of our community and protecting our community, but also taking care of those who need a safe haven, perhaps. I appreciate the comments of Councillor Hartman, just in terms of the tone that the Whitefish community sets. This is a critical issue in terms of protecting our citizens, but I do believe that a caring tone does need to be set for everything that we move forward with. We're all in this together within the community of Whitefish and outside it, and we just need to take care of each other.
Okay. And Brian,
this is Lindsay Scott.
State your name and address again, please. We didn't get that at the very start.
It's Brian Schott, SCHOTT, and it's 708 Lupfer Avenue.
Yeah, thank you. Our next attendee is, and I will apologize for mispronouncing your last name, is David Fishlowitz. You're unmuted. Okay, nothing for him. We'll go to our next caller, Edna White. You are now unmuted. Okay. Next is Felicia Ennis. You are unmuted.
Ooh, hello?
Yes, you are unmuted. Please state your name and address.
Felicia Ennis, 510 Monaghan Road.
Okay. Do you have any comments?
I had a few written comments, and they were addressed mostly regarding homeless shelters, people seeking refuge, and having a plan in place to help find suitable shelter or directing people to where there is shelter. And I think we're paying attention to putting the burden on the staff at the hotels, front desk staff would require some serious attention and education. And yeah, those were just kind of my thoughts as I was listening to the this conversation. So thank you for everything everyone's doing.
Thank you. Our next attendee is Heidi Deich. Apologize. Please state your name and address if you'd like to make a comment. Okay. Move on to our next. Hillary Hansen, your mic is unmuted. If you'd like to make a comment, please do so.
No comment.
Okay. John Middleton, you are unmuted if you'd like to make a comment.
I have nothing at this time.
Karen Hilding, you're unmuted if you'd like to make any comments.
Yes, Karen Hilding, 1016 Creekview Drive here in Whitefish. And I'm very supportive of the measure that the council is taking. I just read in the Washington Post the article about Ketchum, Idaho, which quickly became a hotspot for the virus due to people that were visiting and has now had to shut down part of their hospital because their staff, so many of their staff now has the virus. So I really applaud you taking this move. I know it's not easy, but I think it's what needs to be done. So thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Collum, you're unmuted if you'd like to make any comment. Okay. Kristen Larson, you're unmuted if you'd like to make any comment. Maureen Hine, you're unmuted if you'd like to make any comment.
No comment.
Michael Hine, you are unmuted if you'd like to make any comment.
No comment, thank you.
Mike Jopek, you're unmuted if you'd like to make any comment.
Thank you. My name is Mike Jopek, Blanchard Lake area in Whitefish, just over the line. I trust you, Mayor Mulvilt, and councilors to lead with a kind tone, and I thank you for your leadership. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula Sweeney, you're unmuted.
You guys are on the right track. Paula Sweeney, 350 Lost Coon Trail. Y'all are on the right track. Please do this. Thank you.
Rhonda Fitzgerald, you're unmuted.
Hi, Rhonda Fitzgerald, 412 Lupfer Avenue, and I'm an owner of the Garden Wall Inn, so I am part of the lodging economy here in Whitefish. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're fine.
Great, thanks. I, first of all, want to commend you for Section 3 with the exceptions for all of the essential services and the needs of our local community that Section 3 gives exemptions for. And I think that that's a very important part of this ordinance, and I thank you. I had intended to get on the call and just share all of the things I have heard from the community and how concerned they are about the potential for us following the path that so many desirable small rural places have taken, where they have been overrun basically by people coming from more infected areas. Typically people who can choose to work remotely and have a very nice shelter-in-place experience. Unfortunately, the host communities are the victims of those decisions by people leaving more infected areas, and it's happening all over. Many of the comments you already received reference those places, and we're pretty lucky that we were ahead of the curve on several issues thanks to the council's actions and the city staff's actions. I think you guys have done a really fantastic job, and I commend you for taking this action, which is leading. There was a comment right at the beginning that Whitefish would be the first city in Montana to do this, but we also are by far the city with the most short-term rentals anywhere in the state, and that is primarily where the impact from these virus vacationers is felt, are in the communities with a lot of short-term rentals. I know from just looking at the internet data that just in the last 7 days, hundreds of reservations have been placed on Airbnb and VRBO in our zip code, 59937, and they continue throughout the month of April. They do drop off in May because right now the shelter-in-place rules are mostly till the end of April in most locations, but I would expect the trend to continue unless action is taken. There is no point in staying home to stop the spread if you leave your back door wide open. And I think that is what has been happening here. All you have to do is go to the grocery store and see all the out-of-state plates. So I am very grateful to you for doing this. I assure you that it's better for people in the hotel business for the city to manage this in this way. At some point, we'll be able to recover our business if it is not too, if the virus is not too impactful to our community. And again, I just thank you for everything you're doing. I had two questions about whether or not this includes guests who are currently here and had it intended to continue to stay. I know that in some communities they have basically shut down all of the lodging properties, including short-term rentals, and guests were asked to leave. I am wondering what that, if this addresses that, is a future reservation for someone who is already here and has booked through next week or next month. But that's the only question that I have. Thank you.
Did anyone want to answer that question first before we go to our next? Okay. Scott Worster, you are unmuted if you'd like to make any public comment.
Thanks. Scott Worster, 222 Montana Avenue in Whitefish. I support the measure. Thank the council for being the tip of the spear and leading on this. And I especially support having the transparency of this type of a meeting. And I'm hearing that Hillary was on. Would like to encourage the City County Health Board and the commissioners to follow this example as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Carr, muted. Okay. We'll move on to next. Sue Basta, you are unmuted.
No comment.
Thank you. Todd Burris, you are unmuted if you'd like to make any comment. Okay. Tracy Gridley, you are unmuted if you'd like to make any comment.
Tracy Gridley, Blanchard Lake Road area. Just being all honest and upfront, I don't live there full time right now, and I do own a couple rental properties. And I do commend you guys on the way you're handling everything. I'm certainly not one of those folks that is worried about losing money, but rather more about the lives that we can be saving. And I appreciate all that you guys are doing. I'm just wondering, at what point will this be kind of reevaluated and possibly extend that? Because I personally think it should be extended out much longer as far as, not having people influxing in for rentals, et cetera. So that's my question.
Okay, thank you. And our last attendee, Tristan Scott, you are unmuted.
I'm all set. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Okay, that is all of our attendees that I'm able to have names with to mute or unmute. So we'll turn it back over to John to carry on.
Thanks, Chris, very much.
Michelle. Sorry to interrupt. I do have one more comment that just came in about 10 minutes ago while we were listening to those online calling in. Would you mind if I read that out loud?
Yes, please.
So this is from Joe Kingan. He says, we oppose to opening up short-term rentals and hotels in our area, allowing people in from other areas of the country without testing and venting them to make sure they are not carrying the COVID-19 virus is a big mistake, and we accelerate the spread of this deadly disease. Asymptomatic carriers do not even know they are carriers. This is a big mistake to open this back up at this time. Do not agree to open this back up. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Michelle, very much.
And
with that said, Chris,
I was just going to, for a second, I did have one question from Anna Steen. Says, if current reservations are canceled, what if someone has no place to go? What about refunds? The impact is much greater than a simple cancellation, and I would encourage the City Council to work with local owners to make this workable. And I also have Lindsay Scott, who is saying she had a comment. Let me see if I can find her in the list, and I will unmute her if I can find her.
Chris, I think she was attending with Brian Schott, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm not seeing her with any audio, so if Lindsay's can type her question, I can basically read it off.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Anything further from Michelle or Chris before I close the public hearing?
Okay. From Lindsay, she basically just wanted to reiterate that there are only 22 ICU beds available in the Flathead Valley. So I'm sure that would affect a lot of things for us.
Okay, thanks for the comment, Lindsay. Thanks, Chris.
She does now have audio, so I can unmute her if she would like to make any further comment. Lindsay, if you have any further comments.
I just wanted to say, I was just watching this, and I was just trying to make a quick comment, but I wanted to thank you guys for your time. I know it's a lot, and thank you for taking my last comment, but I just feel really concerned. One thing, just looking at it from the medical side, is that we only have 22 ICU beds available for Flathead County, and I think it's about 5 surrounding communities. And just what we've been seeing with COVID is that when we have one case, then that leads to exponential growth. And so I thank you for jumping ahead of this, and I support this measure. And the last thing I said that just runs through my mind, which is why we aren't going to Costco right now, is that we're just one Costco visitor with COVID away from having an epidemic here. Those were just my comments. I know you guys are ready to vote, but I just wanted to say that I support this measure, and that, it only takes one person coming to our community and not following the rules. I see a lot of kids still playing in the streets together, and their local residents not taking this seriously. So inviting COVID into our community just feels very dangerous and scary. Thanks for keeping our community safe. That's all.
Okay. That is all. We'll turn it back over to you, John.
Thanks, Chris. Michelle, anything further?
No, thank you.
Thanks for all those that provided public comment this morning on Emergency Ordinance 20-05. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I have several questions, or 2 questions, and some commentary to provide, but before I do so, are there any further comments or questions from the council before we take a roll call?
John, if I could speak for just a minute.
Sure.
One thing that has come up is the Abbey Shelter. And I have been in contact with the director there, and they do have a line with the hotel for domestic violence victims who they work with that they can get them into hotels, and they don't have, so we don't have to worry about the questioning at the front desk if they're going through the Abbey Shelter. That's already, that system's already set up. I also, if people are coming from a home where someone has tested positive for COVID-19, I'm not sure that we want them to be going out into the community. I think we want them staying in quarantine at that house. And I don't think we want to set up a situation where we would allow people escaping a home where someone has tested positive, because it's likely that that person is also positive, and allowing them to go out into the community and be in a hotel, I'm not sure that makes sense. The other thing that I really want to stress, though, I think I would like us to have a very specific set of guidelines for businesses in terms of when they're taking reservations, like almost like a direct question sheet to make it very objective for each business owner, almost like a checklist that they would have to show if they're accepting out-of-state reservations. If we leave it up to just them kind of deciding what they want to ask and then us getting in touch with them, I think we need to be more objective than that in terms of how we're allowing people to make new reservations in our community. And that would be something that would follow up on this ordinance, and it would have to come from city staff. But I really feel strongly that we need to have some sort of objective checklist for business owners, so that they know what to ask and how to ask it when they're accepting new reservations during this time.
Steve, I think you bring up a good point. I would offer the following suggestion. We do have, assuming this passes this morning, we do have a letter prepared that we will be mailing, and both emailing as well as direct mailing to all the businesses in town, lodging establishments. I believe there's over 175 that we've reached out to. I would like to get that letter out as quickly as possible, but if it's okay with you, and I'll work with Dana and Angie on this, we could do a follow-up correspondence with an objective checklist to your suggestion, if you're okay with that. But I think it's important that if this does pass this morning, that we message this to those that are affected as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Other council comments before we take roll call?
I just wanted to add that earlier when I was speaking, I didn't mean to presume to speak for the whole council. And secondly, I realize that this is not just about protecting our healthcare workers, although I feel that that's vitally important. I realize there's so many others at risk in our community: our grocery store workers, our postal workers, our emergency services workers, and just the general community at large, particularly those who are vulnerable. And so, so I realize that there are a lot of concerned individuals out there, and people that need our support and protection as well. So not just healthcare workers, but, and that's all.
Thanks, Melissa.
Mr. Mayor, this is it's Frank. Do you need a motion this evening, motion this morning before we proceed with roll call?
If you don't mind, I do have two questions I would like to ask, and I would entertain a motion, and if we get a second, I do have some comments, if that's okay with you, Frank. I'll go ahead and ask my two questions. There was a question asked, and I'll direct this to Angie and or Dana. How does this ordinance, just for the benefit of those listening and those affected by this ordinance, how are existing reservations that have been made for the month of April, how are those affected?
John, from my standpoint, if the person is not already located in the facility, then they would have to be canceled. I don't think that we can kick people out of facilities that are already there. We would hope that they quarantine themselves and abide by the governor's stay-at-home directive. But I think as a policy matter, it's poor policy to kick out people that are actually sheltering right now.
Okay. My second question is, since this is effective through April 30th, it does pass this morning, if lodging establishments are accepting reservations for the months of May and June, for example, and as a council, we elect and or Dana elects to extend this emergency ordinance past April 30th, how does the ordinance then affect those reservations that have been made in the interim?
John, from my perspective, if, their lodging facilities are accepting reservations into May and June, and Dana, has the discretion to extend this in accordance with the governor's directives and federal guidelines, then they would have to cancel those. I don't think it prohibits them from taking them, but I think they should be aware that if it is extended, they will need to cancel those.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the added language or the amendment to section 4, just so the council's aware. I asked for this amendment just to provide Dana the authority to extend this emergency ordinance beyond April 30th in accordance with federal, state, and local guidance without having to come back to the council for concurrence. And I hope you're okay with that. It's similar to how we drafted the previous ordinance that you adopted. So thanks for that text amendment. Those were my two questions. With that said, I will turn it back to Frank for a motion, and I would prefer a second before we have discussion. And again, I do have some commentary. Frank.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve emergency ordinance 20-05, an emergency ordinance of the City Council of Whitefish, Montana, prohibiting hotels, motels, short-term rentals, and all other lodging facilities from accepting reservations for non-essential purposes through April 30th, 2020, and waiving a second reading.
Thank you, Frank. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Quinnell. Before we take roll call, I just have a couple comments. I wanted the public as well as the council to be aware that I did speak with Commissioner Phil Mitchell yesterday, and I brought to his attention this ordinance. Phil was not speaking on behalf or representing the entire commission, but as a commissioner representing our area, he does support this ordinance as long as it is in effect through April 30th only. And if we feel that it needs to be extended, his only request was that we have the opportunity to readdress the ordinance as a council. So I would like to adhere to that request from Phil Mitchell. Of course, our police chief Dial is in full support of this ordinance. So I wanted to say thanks to the chief and all of our law enforcement officers for coming to bat for this ordinance. And then finally, I did have the opportunity to speak with Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney yesterday. I wanted to give the governor's office a courtesy heads up that we will be at least considering this ordinance this morning. We will be the first state, if this is adopted today, implementing such ordinance. And to Mike's comment was that they certainly support what local governments need to do in order to keep their community safe, because we're most in touch with the needs of our unique situation here in Whitefish. So he applauded our efforts, and he's going to pass this along to the governor this morning. I think when we all took our oaths of office, number one, we have a responsibility to protect the public health and safety of our residents. And in my opinion, that's the most important role of government. I did not take the decision to call this special meeting lightly. I understand the sacrifices that many of our businesses are being asked to take with adoption of this ordinance. I wanted to also thank very much the over 70% of the lodging establishments that voluntarily complied with our request to cease taking reservations before April 30th. Again, we had over 70% voluntary compliance from our lodging establishments. So I know you're taking a big sacrifice, and I want to applaud you for your efforts in doing so. Of course, we've been following all federal, state, and local their directives from the governor's office. And as you're all aware, the National Guard has been deployed to major airports as well as the Whitefish train depot to screen passengers and visitors. And so from my perspective, when you consider the governor's 14-day mandatory quarantine for visitors and both residents alike coming to Montana from other states, I think this ordinance provides just another added layer of protection for our town. And I do believe that these sacrifices we make today, I hope we can get back to work and resume a normal life here in Whitefish a lot sooner than we anticipated without this ordinance in place, when certainly it's safe to do so. With that said, if this ordinance is approved this morning, we're about to take a roll call. I will be following up with a public service announcement shortly thereafter that would be posted to the city's website at cityofwhitefish.org and on other social media platforms. With that said, are there any further comments from council? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rebecca, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh. Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
And the motion does carry on a 5-0 vote, with again Andy Fury being absent from voting this morning due to technical difficulties. I want to thank everyone from the public who took time out of their Sunday morning to participate in the public process. I think it's important. I also want to give a big shout out to Dana Smith, our city manager, Angela Jacobs, and our entire staff. It's been a very difficult few weeks at City Hall. We're doing the very best we can to continue to keep our community updated with live information, and we will continue to do so as we navigate these waters. With that said, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks very much.